Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. It's been a busy week on the global diplomacy front. President Trump's sudden Greenland shift and his launch of the so-called Board of Peace rattled European confidence and reopened talks on U.S. access and NATO ties. In Davos, Trump and Zelensky also sealed U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine, but Zelensky reminded everyone it's all about the land, flagging unresolved issues in Donbass. Meanwhile, in Abu Dhabi, the first trilateral talks since Ukraine's full-scale invasion are taking place Friday between Ukraine, Russia and the U.S., led by envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, after a late-night Moscow meeting with Putin. Could all this be a turning point in the conflict now entering its fourth year? We'll try to answer that question and others with our guest, Tomasz Zając, analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Good to have you on TVP World. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So there's so many different facets here. I just want to ask you maybe broadly, what is your key takeaway or your top, let's say, encouraging and not so encouraging takeaway from all of this week?
So what we could witness within this week was, I would argue, a full cycle of Donald Trump method of being president. This means that, we could see that he came up with a topic, and I think it is important to stress that for full 10 months, he, wasn't interested in Greenland. It's true that he mentioned this at the beginning of his presidency, but then for the full 10 months, it wasn't an issue for him. And then suddenly he started, doing these interviews or saying things regarding Greenland, how it is crucial for the United States security. The economic aspect was also important. So he came up with this idea, and we could see, the pressure that was put on the Western allies, actually, not only what President Trump was saying, but also, some actions from the Congress, because if I remember correctly, there was a congressman who actually prepared a law that stipulates that, how Greenland could be part of the United States. So there were like a lot of pressure putting, on different fronts. And then we had a classic, I would say, response from the EU and broader from the European nations, meaning, trying to be patient, trying to be calm, not provoke, not escalate things, trying to address the concerns of President Trump. And then we had the de-escalation. So President Trump, his speech in Davos, when he said that he won't use force against Greenland, and I think one could hear, the big sigh of relief from many capitals in Europe. And I think what is interesting, what's the main takeaway from me here is, I think we can really be prepared for a lot of those kind of cycles. And the question here is what actually worked. And for me, it's not, the answer obviously is not that easy. But I see two main camps. One camp says that, it's the resolve, it's the unity of the European Union. It's the fact that they didn't try to escalate the things, that they addressed the issue. Ursula von der Leyen said that, there will be some Arctic missions, more money for the security of Arctic area, etc. But to be perfectly honest, I'm leaning more toward the answer that, and it's really a strange thing to say, but it's more the psychological aspects of the man himself. I just think that he just from time to time has this thing that he finds very important, and he thinks it's I don't know, it's really good for him, and then he just make this main topic for everyone. And after some time, when I think many people just try to convince him. And if you look at the polls in the United States, most people were against seizing Greenland by force, and there were lots of arguments against this move. And just after some time, this probably sank in, and he just decided, okay, let's move to another topic. So again, what's maybe discouraging, to answer your question, what's encouraging is that we can count on Donald Trump just just being fed up with some issue, and if it happens that it's a difficult thing to obtain, then he just kind of move on. And discouraging thing is that we will probably witness a lot of cycles like this with strange topics that just come up.
On an interesting note, you said a sigh of relief on the European side. Also, this European informal summit, all the European leaders came together Thursday evening. Now, some of those things we've heard from Ursula von der Leyen, there needs to be more respect for Europe. She said, I'm quoting here, we were successful by being firm. Also, let's get your sense of this, because we've had, obviously, these sound bites of European unity, and that is correct to some regard. But really, how realistic is that unity? I mean, we're also looking at some people saying that it was Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, who ultimately convinced Trump to back down. Was it that European resolve? But also, what happens next? Is this now going to be business as usual, as you kind of alluded to? And how does Europe address that collectively?
I don't think it will be business as usual, and from what I read, the main topic of yesterday's meeting of the European leaders was actually how to prepare for the next, Greenlands, so to speak. So I think that because what Trump did actually is very, very bad, because he destroyed in a way trust among allies. So I've read somewhere today that United States is a frenemy. It's neither friend nor enemy. It's like both of them in a way, and this is something unheard of, almost since Second World War. So I think that as for the unity of the EU, was it the Mark Rutte's big win? I think definitely he had his fair share, but. Again, even though I said that I think the psychological aspects were most probably very the most important, but I also think that the pressure and the result that EU showed played some role, because we don't know what happened there. We don't know what was this key factor that made Donald Trump change his mind. But I think when he saw the reaction of the EU, and that you cannot play easily, and again, all those, sorry for saying this, brown nosing in a way, because this is what the European elite does these days, because they think that's the most efficient way actually to realize our interest. Against all this, he saw that we had some tools. There was talk about the anti-coercion instrument. It's a very powerful tool that EU has. Regarding trade, we can, I don't know, for instance, decide to have limited access to our market, or even regarding IPs, intellectual, for instance, the patents of the United States would not apply in EU, etc. So we have anti-coercion instrument. There was this talk regarding that how we should put on hold the tariffs deal, etc., etc. So I think the European Union showed that there would be costs for the decision, and I also think that played to some extent an important role in the whole situation.
All right, I want to get a few more points from you as well. I'm conscious of the time. One thing as well, the Trilateral that's due to take place on Friday, just now in Abu Dhabi, first time ever since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia that all these sides are coming together. I mean, President Zelensky is not going to be there likely. We don't know who exactly is going to be there on the Russian. Nevertheless, this coming together, but also we're hearing still, despite these meetings, also what happened in Moscow, from a Kremlin aide here saying very much that all of this depends on land according to the formula agreed upon in Anchorage. So those are those old 28 points. Is this the Kremlin alluding that anything that will need to be done must include Trump and Putin, or how do we read this? How do we read any sort of success of this trilateral, and what's up next with that?
Well, so I think it's, again, like I talked about cycles in international relations, and I think it's also another cycle in how President Trump tries, to make this deal and to show himself as a great peacemaker. And I think what we witnessed, during those previous cycles is like how Putin is relentless in his ideas, in his interests, and how he shows clearly that he won't have any deal that will be, even to slightest degree beneficial to Ukraine. So I think that, and for Ukraine, it's an existential question. It's you can put a lot of pressure on Ukraine, and of course it works to some extent. And Zelensky knows that he has at some point, to find some way out of this situation. But again, it's an existential question for Ukraine, and you cannot just give away land. Especially it's a very well fortified, and it's just like giving a loaded weapon that you put a lot of effort of crafting, of putting ammunition inside, and basically what you're asked for is just give away this weapon to your enemy, because this is what it is. The claims for the eastern parts of Ukraine is very well fortified, and it will just it would make sense for Ukraine to give away those parts of land. So I think again we will have another kind of this cycle where Zelensky says that this cannot happen, and Putin and Trump trying to put pressure on Ukraine and Western allies to make this happen. But I don't see this happening in the foreseeable future, for now at least.
All right, just final last sentence. One player all this watching, I mean, the Chinese had presence with its vice premier in Davos. After this week there, what they've seen, how Trump is reacting in Europe and how the Europeans are reacting, how is China viewing what's happened after Davos? Just one quick sentence.
I think we sent a good signal to China, and that even though clearly it's a difficult thing when you have 27 actors, to find this common denominator. But I think we managed to do that, and we were managing to do this in Ukraine. Of course, there are some outliers, Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia now, but we managed to, against all odds, to find a way to show that, okay, there are differences among European nations, but still we managed to show a common position. And I think it's a good signal. And I think China also, watching all this, saw that the result that EU, in a way, got after 2022, because I think it was surprising for a lot of people that actually EU, managed to find this result, that is still there. And it's still important for European leaders. And if, push comes to shove, the European Union is able to act to show what will be the cost. And
on that note, we'll have to end it there. A whirlwind week indeed for diplomacy across the world. Thanks so much for breaking it all down for us. Tomasz Zając there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching World Talk. Stay tuned right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.